Alright folks, so we are back, and as you can see, I am in Orlando, Florida for Most Valuable Prospects, doing my main thing, which is preparing to call some fights this Saturday night right here at the Caribe Royale in Orlando. It is a little fitting that I'm back in Florida for this video, but today we're talking about Creator Clash once again, because there's some updates to my last video that I made, and some information that came out today that we need to take a look at. And I'm going to cover everything that either pertains to me or the events in general, but it just feels like the more that comes out about this, the worse, either public perception-wise or in reality, it gets. We're the founders of Creator Clash, and more specifically, Anissa and Ian. And I want to stress that I don't make these videos to put like hit pieces on anybody or do anything like that. What I try to do is look at everything in an unbiased perspective, and now, quite frankly, I'm curious. I'm curious about a lot of the stuff that I didn't know. Not because anybody needed to tell me, but I was just simply out of the loop with a lot of the stuff going on in the background with Creator Clash. And again, some of that is none of my business. But now that a lot of this is becoming more public and it was an event that I was a part of, it is interesting to me to go back and look at some of these things as someone that has been a part of a ton of boxing companies that have either failed or succeeded based on how they ran events, how they spent money, how they booked fights, and how those fights ended up being received by the fan base. And it seems like the more I learn about Creator Clash and a lot of the stuff that was going on that I wasn't aware of, the worse this thing seems to get. But let's break it all down. I'm gonna give you guys some information that was told to me, and I'm not gonna put names out there or anything else, but you know, people involved. And I'm gonna try to give this thing, like I said, an unbiased look. I'm gonna give you guys some information that was sent to me after my last video, and you could probably read between the lines on who sent that to me, but I'm not gonna put anybody out there, whatever. I'm just gonna give you guys what is told to me, and then we're gonna take a look at Ian's boxing coach. Today was on the H3H3 podcast and said some things that are quite frankly baffling. Again, as someone that's been around the boxing business now for so long and understanding what works and what doesn't, some of this stuff is insane, but we'll get into it because it keeps getting worse. That's what it looks like to me. It keeps getting worse. What do I mean? The breakdown, let's go. All right, so firstly, I want to make sure that I correct things that I didn't get right in the last video, because I don't feel like it's very responsible for me to talk about this unless I'm telling you things that I got wrong or I didn't know, that I misspoke about the first time, that this time I come back and correct the record on. So number one of the biggest things around the first video I made was the confusion on where Ian and Anissa specifically and other fighters were getting paid and how the money was flowing from the event to people to charity, from 1 to 2 to 3, right? So I thought that when we read a lot of the stuff, that the video that was made by the new owners, or at least the new faces of Creator Clash, talking about how Anissa and Ian got 34%, and talking about how the event itself isn't a charity event, but they are partnered with the charity, which apparently is a common thing. I've never heard of that. But again, I don't run charity events, so maybe I just don't know how they work. But again, this whole messaging, especially for the third one, around it being a charity event, when none of the proceeds that fans would pay for the fight in general, or the ticket, or the pay-per-view, or any of that would go to charity, it's a little confusing to me. But here's some things that got cleared up. I got a message after my video, the last one, and this was what is told to me about how the structure from Creator Clash 1 and 2 is different from number 3. This is the message. Again, I don't want to put people's information out there. I'm sure you guys can probably guess who sent me this, but they said, just so you're aware, Creator Clash 1 and Creator Clash 2 were structured where 100% of the profit went to charity. Creator Clash 3 was the newly structured model where it was a traditional charity event structure where there's a heavy push for fundraising and a charity partner, and then in parentheses, to protect and guarantee charity funds, and make the ticket sales for profit so we could get investors. And I don't even know if they want that out public, who the person they were trying to get investing was, so maybe we'll block that part out. But essentially they were saying, listen, the way that they are restructuring number 3 was not how 1 and 2 worked. All the proceeds from the profit of 1 and 2 was told to me now, 100% were either going to charity or meant to go to charity, because number 2 didn't have any they didn't profit, so nothing went to charity, which is super unfortunate. But as I'm finding out more and more, seems like there's more reasons for that, and just maybe a misplaced or over-reliance on the success of number 1 to build to number 2, and we'll get into that. I think there was a little bit of misjudgment and overspending on things that were not needed, on top of the fact that, yes, there could have been better ways to build. This message says we were not expecting to make any money off Creator Clash 3, especially with the pirating issue. It's just the format because we own 1/3 of the company. So again, new structure, all payments, all ticket sales, all pay-per-views, we're going to go toward just repaying the event, number one, and then profit being taken by the investors of the company, right? Or the founders of the company, and then potential investors on top of that, and fighters and everything else, but the profit part of that obviously being paid back to the owners. And that statement, by the way, is not nefarious. That seems like a pretty legit thing to do. Again, how you restructure, charity versus for-profit, and why one is better than the other as far as charities are made and how they traditionally work, because they kept saying traditional charity event. I don't really know. So that's something that you guys will have to determine in the comments. So because of that confusion, I asked just another question just because I was a little concerned with the messaging for this third one and how everything is so vague around like what is happening, where money's going, and why no one can get really a straight answer on anything. Although it seems like there is more of a straight answer now that I'm having it explained, and also now that everything is kind of coming out to the public anyway. But I simply just said, last thing, I'm just curious, why did they separate the charity from the event when people left? All right, I guess at this point it needs to be communicated that I'm speaking to an essay here. Like, it's not a crazy thing. From what I understand, no one that buys a ticket or the pay-per-view is actually paying for a percentage to go to the charity. Instead, it's a different fundraiser. That was something I didn't understand because they're still calling it a charity event with none of the actual money going to the charity, unless I'm misunderstanding how it works. And they said, yes, so traditionally charity events, most, if you look up popular models, are done this way. Okay, I didn't know that, right? I don't know traditional charity events or how they're funded or how they make money or who makes the money or how they end up, giving money to charity. I don't know that. I always thought that when you went to a charity event or you did something for charity, the people that donated to said event or to said cause by buying a ticket to the event, by buying a ticket to a raffle, or by bidding on something at an auction, that money ended up going to charity because I just thought that's how it worked. If that's not the case, then that's on me. I didn't know that. The event itself is for profit, but there's a charity partner, and fundraising around the event and during it encourages people to donate, even if they pirate or don't want to watch. And again, I get it, like pay-per-view is a dying model in the combat sports business, and pirating is a massive issue across every single combat sport. It's no secret that people pirate events, like it's bad. The UFC has a card this Saturday that I can almost guarantee is going to be pirated by the 12 or 13 to 30 mark. A lot of people that understand how to use the internet are just gonna bypass any paywall to get the content they want because it's easier and it's cheaper and it works. They said we switched to a charity format for two reasons. One, and the biggest reason in my opinion, the event isn't a moneymaker. Clearly with pirating and the slow decline in interest in YouTube boxing, fair. We knew if we kept the format the same, we weren't gonna guarantee any money for charity. This shelters the charity and ensures they are the number one priority rather than waiting on us to break even to see if we can get any money. So it makes enough sense. Like, we want to give to charity regardless if we make money on this event or not. That's fair. I just think that it would have been better communicated had it been said this way in the beginning, which makes sense, by the way. My whole thing was, why is it now that we are figuring all of this out and that people are figuring all of this out? I think if this was the messaging from the beginning of the way they wanted to restructure 3 after number 2 lost money, they went, hey, you know what? We want to put this event on again, and we want to make sure that we right the wrongs or the mistakes from Creator Clash number 2, and here's how we're gonna do it. I think that people would have gotten behind that a lot more because it was clear and communicative and just a better way of telling people, hey, we're really gonna try here to fix this mistake. We feel terrible about what happened and some of the things that maybe they misguided themselves into believing, and some of the things they were spending money on, and just a complete mismanagement of funds and finger pointing and just a lot of the things that were the reason number 2 didn't work. The second reason we needed investors this year because we're behind the scenes very confident we cannot make our money back on the event. We will be lucky to break even. Investors were willing to invest for exposure in the hopes that maybe in a few years anti-pirating would get better or interest would pick up. Investors are willing to take that risk. We can't. We aren't rich like that. We can't soak another $250,000 loss. That is what you call communication. And you know what? It makes a level of sense because yeah, even if it is a specific charity event, unless you have the means to lose a ton of money, which it shouldn't even get to that point, quite frankly. Like, if you're gonna put an event on like this, you need to have investors on board before you even start the planning process. Like, that's just point blank period. And I know that's sometimes a little bit of fairy dust, because how do you convince investors about something that they can't see and they don't know that they're gonna make their money back on, or they're not willing to put that money up for exposure or anything else? But that's kind of the game when it comes to a startup or investing in something that isn't necessarily proven. Even though Creator Clash 1 kind of was proven. Like, you saw there was a way to do this. So I just think that when I look back at it, it looks like, even from the communication I got there, which was very helpful and I appreciate, that there wasn't this level of thinking that went into the second one, which bit them in the ass, leading to the third one being harder to get people behind. And I think part of even going forward with the third one without having either investors, which I assume they did get some, but not having a guarantee to try to pay for all the expenses around it and still find a way to give that money to charity is why they were having a little bit of an issue. And then we add in all the drama and we add in all the other bullshit that came out of this, which has gone so far out of the way. It's gone completely crazy. It's opened my eyes to things to go, holy shit, this goes even further than I could have imagined. But at least there's some communication there that clears up any of the confusion I had on how things were structured and why things went a certain way. I just kind of didn't understand it. And, you know, quite frankly, some of it I still don't, like how you lose as much money as they lost on the second Creator Clash, and, you know, the thought process behind why you would make some of the decisions that were made. But I don't want to say luckily, but now publicly, there's new information that came out today on the H3 podcast. H3 had on iDubbbz's head boxing coach. I believe his name is Michael. And this is kind of the stuff that I'm interested in, like behind the scenes planning for the event and the boxing side of this. This is something that I love in the pro wrestling game. I love in the UFC and other combat sports. I like the business of sports. And he had some things to say here that were, I mean, kind of shocking, but at the same time, make a lot of sense as to why things keep getting worse for Creator Clash and how just mismanaged this whole thing has become. So let's take a look at some of these clips here. So here is Mike, iDubbbz's former coach, revealing that Ian and Anissa flew out a bunch of influencers and paid for an entire hotel for 300 plus of them, plus parties for Creator Clash number 2. I told you guys, if you were around, I don't know if it got into the video for the last one, but I said this on live stream that there were influencers there, or at least people that looked like influencers there, that I didn't understand like why they were there. And I also had heard from people that the entire hotel had been rented out. Someone on my stream on the last one had said, did you see the Hasanabi guy there? And I said, I did. I remember seeing him, a bunch of pro wrestlers too, because John Morrison was there, but you could just see there were people, and this was after the fight, at our hotel, and I just chalked it up to people coming out to the event or, you know, being super supportive or whatever. Turns out that may not have been the reason they were there. Let's take a look.
The details that you guys shared with me. For example, one being that I think it was you, Kate, that mentioned that he and Anissa did in fact pay for Hassan and all of his compatriots to travel to and stay at Creator Clash 2.
Yes.
Yeah, so they were talking about that long before, about how they had to fly in all these people. First of all, they rented the hotel for over 300 creators. And flew a lot of them in. When the first year it was much more scaled back. We just had a couple floors of like some place, like a nice suite place, but it wasn't extravagant at all. And then the second year,
this reminds me a lot of Kingpin, an event that I worked directly after Creator Clash number 2. I remember we flew from Florida to the UK to prepare for Kingpin, and this reminds me of exactly the problems that happened there. We got to the UK to do the Kingpin tournament, and the company and the promotion had rented out this amazing hotel. Everybody's meals were comped no matter how much you spent. There was no like stipend for a meal. There was no limit on things. People were eating so much fucking food and just charging it to the room, charging it to the promoter. And again, this is a little different, but you start to hear about the fighters' purses that were on the Kingpin card, and people making $500,000 here, people making this amount. And then you start to see the entourages of people like Blueface, who was on that card, brought his entire family, close family, friends, security, homeboys, managers. It was a madhouse, and they were just spending money needlessly on things that were nonsensical. And me and you know, my buddy Face Sensei, who actually commentated the first creator class with me, kind of looked at each other and went, oh, this is gonna end bad. These people are just spending. There's no thought process as to like, is there a cap on spending, because this is going to get out of hand and someone is gonna get left holding this bag. Now granted, Kingpin was so much worse. They lost so much money. I want to say they lost millions of dollars. Like, it was so bad. I almost think it was some form of money laundering for whoever the investor was. It was that bad. But the point still remains, if you are needlessly spending on things like an entire hotel, which this guy Mike here is correct, and I met this guy, he was a nice dude, every interaction I had with him, but he's right. The first creator clash, it was at the University of Southern Florida, and they had, I forgot what it was called, the Yingling Center, right? That was the college basketball center, 10,000 people, where the University of Southern Florida plays, the Bulls. But the hotel, I don't remember if it was on campus or where it was, but it was nice. It wasn't like a rundown hotel, but it was a massive hotel, and what Mike is saying, there's correct. They rented out a couple of different floors, and that was really it. That's what a normal fight event would do, unless you're the UFC or the Ring Magazine, or you're somebody that either has the money or has been in this business long enough to understand how booking events is just as much of a money-making process as it is a let's not spend needlessly process, right? Yes, we want to make money, but we also want to spend as little as we can to make things comfortable for our fighters, our coaches, and also put on an event that's going to make money. And especially when you add in the idea that the money that was being made on the second Creator Clash was directly going to go to charity. That was the only money that was going to go to charity. So all these expenses before the fights, before the event even starts, like the entire hotel being rented out, like flying your YouTube friends out to the event that don't have any real participation in the event, that their only reason to be there is so that you guys can mingle. They're not making you any money. They're not donating to charity to come. You're buying their ticket for a flight, which I don't know these people, but if they are these big YouTubers, were they paying for first class flights? How many of these people came? What was the reason they were there, other than, again, just to mingle and be there? And you're paying for their hotel. It's not a good look. I don't remember where we saw the clip, but maybe it was on H3. They wanted to make this a, I don't know what the term was, but like a VidCon type of thing, but for creator boxing. And that's great. That's a lofty goal to have. Have everyone come in, but they need to come in on their own accord. You don't need to pay for them to stay in the hotel because they're not contributing anything to your event.
They did that full hotel for 300 creators. They flew a lot of people in. One of the people they flew in was Froggy Tonic, and they flew him in from France.
That's insane.
And Froggy had told us that he was there to salvage the documentary.
Yeah.
And that was super offensive to us because we're like, what do you mean salvage the documentary? And he said his job was to go around and like film Anissa having interactions with everyone. So we didn't know if that meant they were going to make the second documentary about how, or the actual documentary about how like Anissa was responsible for the event, because she did put a lot of work in for the first event and she did put a lot of work in for the second. But at the same time, in the first event, she didn't get credit for it. So she felt like she deserved all the credit. So I think that's why they paid Froggy Tonic to come film her and follow her around for the second event. But yeah, they flew in a lot of people. They rented out the whole hotel for 300 creators. And when we asked them if Ian's dad was going to be there, because he was there for the first event, they said they couldn't afford to fly Ian's dad in. It was too expensive.
Yeah, man, listen, this is not a video for me to sit back and point the finger and holier than thou people, but what are we doing? I don't know who Froggy Tonic is. It sounds like a drink I'd order at the fucking bar. I don't know who that is, but if you wanted to film a documentary, and Michael said it was disrespectful to them, I don't know why, but if you wanted to film a documentary, Ian is a YouTuber. There's no way that there was not people who they knew that were here based either close to them or in the United States or in Florida that they could get to film this, right? Or just work with the production company that's already putting on the event. To me, it doesn't make sense. the cameras, the equipment, these things are still there. You can ask the people, I don't know what it's called, Good Event something, the production side of this. I'm sure they could have helped there. But these are things where you could have cut costs and it would have been no different. And it would not have contributed to the event doing worse. This would have actually helped the event do better. Regardless if you know, what they're saying about making Anissa look better, I don't really care about any of that, but you just have to think logically, like, is this going to help meet the goal that we want to do, which is to raise money for charity? Because if it doesn't, then again, you're shooting yourself in the foot. And maybe you're okay with that, but this is why people would get upset.
It's pretty sad. And Froggy Tonic told me directly, because I met him at the hotel, right, where we were all staying at in Tampa for CC2. And he was like, oh, you're the videographer that has all the content of Ian sparring. And I said, yes, I'm super excited. I've been waiting for this documentary, but it never came out. So I heard that you're taking it over now and you're going to help with the editing. And that's when Froggy Tonic told me that, yeah, Ian and Issa brought out his whole crew from France.
His whole crew?
I think it was just him.
Well, he had a few people that were holding the cameras, his camera guys. Because the interesting thing was that usually when like someone is a videographer, they would be the one filming most of the time. But it was interesting to me that
he was just directing.
Yeah, he was more directing.
This fucking guy thinks he's Spielberg?
Scorsese.
What the hell's going on?
Fly out who you want to fly out. Put importance on things that you value. But again, I have to keep reiterating this. At the end of the day, your value system will be shown in the things that you do to either contribute toward or take away from the final goal, which is charity, right? And yes, that means that the founders and the people that invested are going to lose a lot of money regardless if it doesn't do well. But when you make decisions that are detrimental to you even getting to that point, that falls in your lap. All the other stuff that you can't control, that's one thing. But this kind of stuff is like, what are we doing? You know, this is not where you need to be spending things. There's no other reason to do it unless they are contributing. And that's the cold, hard truth, no matter how you want to spin it. Otherwise, you're just doing it for, again, personal means. And I don't think that doesn't make sense.
You dress nicely for the gala, that there would be pictures and such.
We found out it was a red carpet event that they flew Getty Images in for. So they straight up flew Getty Images to take pictures for the event. But
they're the only. Go ahead. Sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say, when we asked them about it, and I said, "Hey, is there a gala?" And they said, "Oh, you guys don't even worry about it. You don't have to go to that." And I said, what? This is what Anissa said. And I said, what? And I said, well, some of the sparring partners got invited. And she said, I don't know how they got on that list. They weren't supposed to be on the list. And in my mind, I'm like, Ian had invited them. He sent them the email personally.
What
right?
a disgusting human being she seems to be. I'm sorry.
Oh, she didn't want any of us there. She only wanted like creators there or people that would, I guess, make her feel like she could get more clout. So she told us we didn't have to come to the event. She doesn't know why we would want to be at the event. And I said, what's the event for? Yeah. And she said, and it's an award show. And I said, what are the awards for? And she said, they're awards for the boxing. And I said, why wouldn't his coach want to be there? Why wouldn't his team want to be there? I was like, that makes no sense. So everybody else, all the other coaches.
This entire thing here, first off, I didn't go to the gala. Shout out to Christian. We were on a plane the next day to the UK, so we didn't go to any gala, but even the gala idea itself, if this is what I'm talking about, this was after the fight, I think. I went to the pre-fight thing, which was like a little mixer type of thing, I don't really know. But just this idea of having a gala, there's nothing wrong with it, right? A thank you to the fighters, to their coaches, to the people that put on the event. That's a great idea. That's a fun thing to have. And if you've already spent the money to rent out the hotel for the weekend anyway, then fine, whatever. But it does feel, again, like it's a part of this personal side of whatever, you know, if it's Anissa, if it's Ian, if it's whoever, wanted to have this side thing attached to what was a charity event, right? And I say charity because no charities end up getting money out of this because, again, at least partly due to these kinds of decisions, like spending on a gala, spending on these kind of things for people that are not affiliated with the event to come to the gala, like the Wrangler Denims and the fucking Pokemanes and the Hassan Abis and these YouTubers and Twitch streamer people that had no other affiliation with the event other than like, those are people we want to be friends with. So that again is just a little bit of a confusing decision to me. Again, if it's your money, then do what you want with it. But just realize that when there is a massive loss and charities aren't given money and people are upset about that, they are going to look at stuff like this and they're going to point to it and they're going to say, this didn't make sense. You shouldn't have done this. It was a terrible financial decision and it could have impacted either you not losing as much money or potentially having some to then give to charity, which is the whole thing I keep coming back to with this. Why? Why even do some of this stuff? Again, other than personal reasons. Do what you want, I guess, but like you have to know that just it doesn't make sense.
Which is I talked to, I said, hey, did you guys know about the gala? They said, yeah. I said, did you bring a suit for it? And all of them had freaking like 3-piece suits with like kerchiefs and everything. I had sweatpants. I'm like, what the
dude, that's so messed up. Why? It's like you're the guy connected with the event organizers and they're explicitly excluding you guys.
I know why. I honestly believe that the reason why Ian and Nisa excluded us and did not want us to know about the gala is because we're both very professional, we're both very direct and very transparent. If they told us that they were going to throw a huge gala after the fight and it was going to cost a ton of money, we would have asked them, why are you doing this?
Yeah,
because Anissa already told us, she shared with us prior to CC2, like a month before, that they were negative, was it 500K already?
Yeah, at the time.
Whoa, hold on.
500K? Before the event goes down, you've already invested 500K into this thing. And again, hoping to recoup that back like you did the first time. I highly doubt they spent that much the first time. Before the event went down, I highly doubt that they, specifically them, spent 500K by themselves on all the expenses for number one, because there weren't that many. There was no gala, there was no hotel rented out completely, there was no 20,000 seat arena, there was none of that. There was no flying out whoever the fuck to come to this thing. There wasn't as much of that, at least to my knowledge. And there was a lot more interest, obviously, and again, a lot more people bought the pay-per-view and X, Y, and Z, but damn! And again, these two, you know, everybody can be right in retrospect and everybody can Monday morning quarterback this thing, but yeah, they're making sense. I don't know about their personal relationship with them and Anissa and Ian, but if you told me this stuff beforehand, because I didn't know there was a gala. To be fair, I'm a little aloof when it comes to these things. I just didn't need to be told where to be and what time to be there. But I didn't know they rented out the whole hotel. I didn't know there was a gala. I didn't know they were inviting their friends to come out. I, just like I did to Kingpin, would have said something and going, hey, there probably needs to be a lot less spending here, because if you want to make this a mainstay, you're about to lose a shit ton of money. And it's going to affect every event after this. And again, that's easy for me to say now, but still, I think anybody that understood how the fight business worked, at least on a macro level, would have told them this same thing. And you know, this Michael guy seems to have been around long enough, he's a fucking coach for God's sakes, to know that this was needless.
Yeah, that's important.
Say that again.
They were negative 500K before the event.
Yes.
So going up to the event with the ticket sales and the PPV sales, when the event started, they knew they were down $500,000.
Yes.
Keep in mind that they moved to a bigger venue and they sold a lot of tickets. But before the event had started, they said we're fine. So the reason we found this out was because I wanted Ian to start doing 2 training sessions a day. And I said, Ian, you need to start doing 2-a-days. And he was like, why should I do 2-a-days? And I told him, I was like, Ian, you're not good at boxing, man. My brand is at stake. So you need to do 2-a-days. That's what pro boxers do.
Now, again, Michael telling Ian that he is not a good boxer and that he needs to train more, that's the message, right? That is the message. He says it very bluntly there, like, you're not good at boxing and my brand is at stake, because when I train a fighter and they don't look great or they don't perform well, that in turn reflects on me. Number one, I will say that is what you got yourself into. Training an influencer is not as easy as training a pro athlete or a pro fighter, because they don't pick up the sport well. Coach Michael should have some understanding there, right? Like, yes, he's not going to look like a pro fighter. That's something every coach that comes into the influencer boxing scene should know. That, yeah, your brand is at stake, but you're not going to turn chicken shit into chicken soup with every single person that you train that's never boxed before. In fact, it's probably going to be more like lighter chicken shit. Like, it's not going to be great. It's just not. I'm not good. I can't box really like that. Like, I can move around and I can, you know, throw some punches, but I'm not a good boxer. But you get what you can get out of the person. And this is why, you know, yeah, okay, Coach Mike should understand that. But if he is encouraging his fighter to train more, then that also makes sense, because he's being real. He's being honest with his fighter. He is being blunt. He's being a little bit, forward with it, but that is what you have to do if someone's not getting it, if they're not understanding the severity of the situation.
Yes. And then I told him, I said, my brand is on the line. I said, you can go back to YouTube. My whole life is fighting and coaching fighters. And I'm like, so if you don't have a good performance, that's going to look bad on me. After the first event, for the first event, he didn't do any of his cardio. So that's why I ended up gassing out so bad.
That's also not a good thing. Like, not listening to your coach when he's telling you to do things is also not good. I would have, again, just to push back a little bit on the coach here, I would have said something more to the effect of, if you don't do what I'm telling you to do, you can get seriously hurt. Like, making it around his brand and, I have to go back and do that. That's probably not the best way to communicate with your fighter, because they want to know that you care. They want to know that the reason that you're invested in this is because you want to be invested, not just to build a brand or whatever else. And I don't know that the coach meant it that way, but that's what BJ would tell me. Listen, if you aren't doing the things I'm telling you to do, you're going to get hurt. And I don't want you to get hurt, so do it the way I'm telling you to do it, or else you are going to get hurt. Do the things I tell you to do. And BJ didn't have to convince me of that. I was with it. But the point being, if your coach, in this case for Ian, is telling you need more work, then you probably should listen, because he has more experience doing this than you ever will. And if you're just blowing him off, then you probably are going to deserve whatever punishment you get on fight night. That's just the reality.
Well, he went and told Anissa that I told him my brand was at stake. So the next day she comes into the gym super mad, and she's like, our brand is at stake. We're $500,000 in the hole right now.
I wish I knew that. I wish I knew that at that time. I think a lot of the fighters would have liked to have known that. I don't think none of them needed to be in the dark about that,
For sure.
Completely.
Again, did I need to know it? No. I'm there. I'm not getting paid to do whatever. I'm just doing whatever I'm asked. But the fighters, yeah, of course, that would be a good idea for them to have known, because they've committed time to this. And if they're worried about potentially getting paid for their training camp, or is the charities that they've promised to their fans even going to be paid out, because they're attaching their names and their brands to this thing? And if they knew before the thing even went down that Anissa and Ian were already $500,000 in the hole, that they're probably going to go, oh, hell no, I'm not going to be a part of this. This is going to blow up in everybody's face, right? And that would have been a whole other issue, obviously, but still, you would like to know. And this is, again, reminding me of Kingpin, how we almost got to fight night without anyone. And no, we got to fight night and people didn't get paid because they didn't make money. They went out of business. I still am owed $36,000 from the Kingpin people because they couldn't pay anyone. They lost so much fucking money. And there was no communication ever. Oh, everybody's getting paid. Don't worry about it. And then no one was. That's the type of shit that'll piss people off. And again, have them turn on you.
Well, and that's the thing. They said you guys didn't promote enough, but they weren't honest about the fact that they were spending the money from the ticket sales on the hotel, on flying people in, on all these other things. So it was just like,
so those decisions, the Gala decisions, were made while in the red.
Yes.
I have a question about that.
So she was like, we're already down 500,000. And she still had time to cancel stuff when she said that? Like, how before the event was that?
Yeah. I mean, it was 2 weeks. It was 2 weeks before the event. I mean, they knew
she
they
could have made some last minute moves. Yeah.
They knew they were 500K in the hole long before that, right? That's just when they yelled at us about it.
Yeah.
So they could have definitely made.
That's another thing and you heard Harley say it there. Again, I don't know the situation, but if you knew you were that much in the hole a month before the event and we're still willing to go, you know what? It's a good idea to have all these people come out. It's a good idea to rent out the entire hotel. It's a good idea to put this gala on. That stuff it's nonsensical. It doesn't contribute anything to the event. It guarantees that you're going to lose at least some sum of money, and you're just hoping, I guess, on that last minute push. And to be fair, there is, in the fight business, a last minute push when it comes to ticket sales and pay-per-view that tends to be the big lump sum of what you end up gaining, especially on the pay-per-view side. But if they are already seeing the ticket sales, which may or may not have, I remember on Fight Night, they did pretty well. I think it was 20,000 seat arena. They did 16 or 17K. That's pretty good. But if they're relying on just that pay-per-view, that's a massive gamble with people's money, man. Especially when you add in the fact that they're willing to, again, pay for the flights of people and the stay and the hotel and the gala, and gamble on even that part of people's money on, well, we already spent that. This is something we're going to continue doing. Even though we don't know, we're already 500K in the red. We don't know if we're going to make it back, but we're still going to do these things. That's crazy.
She wanted that award show so bad the next day. They
Yeah.
really wanted to have that award show so she could give out awards. Once again, you had heard, like Ian said, he didn't want to have the fight just end and have everybody go home the next day.
He said, I'll quote him because it's very rich. He says that the first time afterwards, he woke up and everybody was gone. And he found it super depressing because he didn't get a chance to process his trauma, which seems a little bit hyperbolic, frankly, if I'm being honest. I mean, it's like a self-inflicted charity event. I wouldn't call that exactly I wouldn't put that up with like maybe like fighting in a war. I don't know. But
Right.
but I guess we all define trauma differently. But so he goes, so in that case, I wanted to throw a party afterwards where we could all talk to each other and process our trauma. And then he says, we lost money, but I don't regret throwing the after party.
That's fucking insane, man. Okay, number one, yeah, fighting is unlike any other sport. And quite frankly, sports in general, that you experience the highest of highs and lowest of lows. When everything is built to this one moment, whether it's a fight, whether it's a football game, a basketball game, whatever, and it's that intense, and you go out and you give whatever your best effort is, and then either it works out or it doesn't, that next day, yeah, you're going to feel a little empty inside. That's part of life. That's part of sports and life combining, right? Win or lose. Listen, I won my fight, and months later, I still have some things that I want to go back and do differently, right? That didn't feel quite right for me. That's just part of it. But and it's so hard to tell someone that hasn't ever lived in this sector, that hasn't been an athlete, that doesn't necessarily understand the highs and the lows of this, that's kind of how it works, and that you have to. And the biggest part of fight sports and really sports in general is growth. How you react to the things that happen, right? Sometimes the old saying is not how things happen, it's how you react to it. And that is the truth in these kind of situations. But like trying to justify this gala by being like, well, I want everybody to process their trauma together. I guess it's that's a personal thing for Ian, and that's fine, but this is the fight game, man. It's the hurt business, and people get hurt, especially when you're going into something like this. And it almost feels like he didn't know that. It almost feels like he didn't have a full grasp of what was going to happen. Win or lose, it's the reality of the situation. But at the end of this thing, and that's kind of the last clip there, what I'm seeing is, again, the stuff we always come back to with Creator Clash. A lack of communication, some personal side interests that may have gotten ahead of the actual goal of Creator Clash and the fundraising and the actual point of what it was supposed to be, a charity event. This does seem like, if you go all the way back and look at that clip that we watched in the last video, I don't know if, Leo, you can find it, it's Anissa and Ian saying they wanted to run a VidCon event with Creator Boxing.
Party. Interesting.
It's like a way more exciting VidCon. Or like I want it to be like influencers can like care about this and fans can care about this and like you can go watch it and have like a build up, like maybe parties before and like.
And that seems like when the charity thing came along with it, that there was a splitting of ideas as to what Creator Clash was supposed to be after the first one. I think that and the lack of communication on how much they were in debt before the second one, really just relying around the second one, how much they were in debt, why they were doing certain things, the difference in opinion on coaching and just the general attitude toward people that either they liked or didn't like. This is why it seems like it was a personal failure. Personal interests, things that weren't necessarily tied to the event get involved. And then all of a sudden there's more drama than there is continuity. There's more splitting at the seams versus coming together. Then all of a sudden you have this event that started with the most virtuous of ideas becoming a cesspool of drama and bullshit that, quite frankly, nobody that donated or nobody that wanted to see this event put on, no one that spent their hard-earned money on this gave a single fuck about. And outside of the pirating and there's just lack of interest, whatever it was, those things do fall at the feet of Ian and Anissa. Whether they want to accept that or not, the stuff that they didn't need to spend money on, their attitude towards certain people in those spaces, and the general lack of awareness as to what was really happening on the boxing side, on the financial side, and ultimately on the blowback side, I think is why people still, to this point, aren't on board with how they've addressed a lot of this stuff. But that's what I think about this entire thing. Again, it's sad to see, as someone that was there from the rip, how this is all going down. Seems like every day we get new stuff. If there is new stuff, we'll cover it here because fuck, at this point I'm invested, I guess. You guys drop a like, subscribe, and we got new videos coming all week. Like I said, I'm here in Florida, but I'm back at home next week, so whatever happens next, I guess we'll find out.